warm welcome to all of you. We're going to be discussing about media's role in creating social conflict. I'm just going to set the context a little bit. If you guys watch television news today, you'd know that TV news has become very little about giving you news. It's about making you angry. It's about telling you who the enemy is, who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. It's actually following the footsteps of reality TV shows like Big Boss, where you need two people to fight, to sometimes abuse at each other, to sometimes even get physical. So we're going to be discussing this and also looking at what this does to a young democracy like India. I have wonderful panelists with me. Mr. Rahul Dev there. He's a veteran journalist. He's worked with newspapers. He was the editor of Jansatta. He's headed Aaj Tak. And then now currently he's working for Speakers Research Initiative, which is to help parliamentarians become better parliamentarians. We have Khalid Shah. He's worked with young journalists. He's worked with Republic TV. He's worked with Times Now. He's worked with Vion. And then he quit. And now he works with ORF. Vani Tripathi Tikoo, she is an actor, a producer. She works with the Film Certification Board that we incorrectly call Censor Board. And we have Dominique with us all the way from France. She's an author. Her work on Rwanda has won her awards. Her latest book is on violence against girl child across many countries, including India. So I'm just going to quickly, just as opening remarks, I just want you guys to quickly tell me whether you watch television news or not, and what do you think of it? So maybe Rahul, you could go first. Do I watch TV? Do you watch TV news? If yes, what do you make of it today? How do you view it?
I do watch, but decreasingly.
Okay. And what do you make of it?
It's becoming more and more difficult to take what goes on in the primetime debates. Okay. Otherwise, news itself is still good, wholesome, and important. You can't do without it.
Okay.
But given the majority of channels, what they are doing in primetime in the name of debate, the only thing I get is decibels. So it doesn't help. So I avoid it now.
Okay. Khalid, you?
Well, quite frankly, no. Even when I was a journalist, I wouldn't watch the channels I was working with. For various reasons. One, because social media makes news more available. You have different sources at one place. And I think social media reflects all kinds of points of view. But news channels become a little more difficult because they take a toll on your emotional well-being, at times your mental well-being. And when you're a journalist, you don't feel like, when you go back home in the evening, you don't feel like going through the same drill that you've been through for the whole day. So in a sense, you just want to
switch
plug
off
out from it. Yeah.
Okay. Vani, as a theatre person and an actor,
there is one word which defines news today, and it's called TRP. You all call it television rating points. I call it Tum Raho Pareshan. So, Tum Raho Pareshan in Hindi, in my language, means that you will always be very tense. Having said that, I really couldn't avoid not watching news because I used to appear a lot, on debates for a very long time on various subjects. And having said that, I would never want to watch myself again with, also the semantics which go on primetime TV. But I think there is a thin line between looking at the broadcast quotient of news today optimistically or pessimistically. So in a while we are on the discussion, I think that is one of the things we should definitely be talking about. Who is broadcasting what and why? And I think that is what is defining what we are calling news today.
Dominique, you obviously don't watch Indian television news, but tell us a bit about maybe French television news, and if you watch it, what do you make of it? What's the state
I
there?
try not to watch it only. It means that I do something else while watching.
Okay.
I mean, ironing and thinking about something else, or writing, and it's much more easier to push out all the tense and the hysteria, what is going on. And it helps me to keep only what I have to keep, the information I have to keep, and not to be fed by all the hysteria and the tense things.
Is French television news also very aggressive? Is there a lot of...
More and more.
More and more.
More and more. And it is really like fillful with emptiness with emptiness. And it's very bad. When you look at this, you feel bad. As you said, this is emotionally bad. and you are fitted with something which is wrong, and inside you it is wrong too. So you have to push it out.
So it's clearly television uses scarring us. Okay, so Rahul, I want to first come to you as someone who's headed a news channel. You've been a journalist in print. You've been in newspapers. You've been in television. Have you felt that things have gotten worse over the past few years? Was it always like this? And while you were heading a channel, did you see television news going in that direction? Because what really defines, like Vani says, news is TRPs. And the only way to generate TRPs maybe is to give you conflict, to give viewers something to feel angry about or feel conflicted about.
I've also been an anchor for decades, starting with Aaj Tak. So I speak as an anchor apart from all the other functions. I did not foresee it, not in the manner it has happened. And I would put it to you that I'm not going to into when we were doing this in our time, that's stupid. But I think this trend, which has become a fashion today, or mainstream of style of anchor debate, is largely the effect of a few individuals who became so popular and so successful that it became a trend for the rest. They became role models, they remain role models. And there is another dimension to this whole debate, which I just put across to media students an hour ago. There is this communication is a two-way business. There is always the audience. We forget the audience, we sort of exonerate the audience, and we sort of get into this self-decrying mode. When I would do a good discussion, solid, substantial, wholesome, serious, on a serious issue of the day, the TRP, and I don't run it down at all. That's the currency, so let's not do that. It's imperfect like all human systems, but it's still the only measure you have. The next week's report would be this, and when I was able to get my guests to fight and argue in a manner that looked like as if they're going to come to blows any moment, the viewership report went like this.
Okay.
So what do I do? As an anchor, as a channel, what do I do? Because I need audience, I need eyeballs. While at the same time, there are at least 15 other channels dealing with news, debates, and other stuff in a much better, serious, calmer manner. Why don't people watch them, and why people watch decibel, trash, drama, and complete annihilation of civility? Many of our channels and anchors, I'm sorry to say, have destroyed, are destroying every day basic human civility of dialogue.
But you're saying that there's an audience for it. As an anchor, you felt that every time your debates veered towards a fight or a conflict, you just had more audience than when you did a series?
And I'll just add one last point. I decided when I was running a channel, I decided I'll not have a crime program, which was, for a Hindi channel,
you have to have
Sansani. I don't have to tell you what it meant. Yeah. It said, no, we'll not have a crime program. We didn't. Yet we succeeded to an extent. Yet we were watched. We were appreciated. So it's possible. It takes resolve. It takes, time. And it takes support. Audience support as well as sort of management support or whatever it is.
I think it takes commitment on part of the anchors and journalists also of the channel to sort of stay focused on news. Khalid, as someone who's worked in news channels as a reporter, do you think current newsroom leaders have that resolve? In your experience, when you were a reporter, typically, what would you be told to do? Give us some insights into how the tamasha is built.
Well, one reason I'm not a reporter or a journalist is very simple, because I didn't like what was happening. I came in to journalism with a sense that the job comes with a social responsibility, and I thought that I'm not fulfilling my social responsibility, one. And at the same time, I'm putting my person at stake. My reputation, my friends started boycotting me socially. They stopped talking to me because I was working for a certain channel. And also the kind of work that I was doing, I felt it's not why I came in this profession. This is not
what was the sort of work like? I mean, if you were to...
For instance, I mean, a reporter, in my opinion today, very few channels give a reporter the agency to do the story he wants to do or she wants to do the way they want to do it. Today, everything is about the story will be decided by the anchor. It will be based on the whims and fancies of the anchor. And you're just a talking head throughout the day to carry that story forward till the night when the anchor takes over and expresses outrage, anger, and does some commando comics over a story. So that's what the reporters have really come down to. And the second thing, very important, is that today, the journalism in itself in TV is becoming, the need for a reporter is becoming a little redundant because everything is happening on the WhatsApp groups. As a reporter, as a young reporter, I found it very difficult to break it because in the mode of breaking news where you have to get the news first, if you're not a part of a cabal of reporters or journalists who have created these WhatsApp groups or a network, you may be totally unaware of what's happening. So what is happening is that a reporter is now dependent on what everybody else is doing, and what everybody else is doing is collecting, one person collects the information, that gets circulated on the WhatsApp groups and everyone follows the same. So nobody does a due diligence of cross-checking or maybe wanting to add more to the story. I remember one instance, I got a call at 3 a.m. in the night from my input desk. Input desk is which deals with the reporters, and I didn't pick it up. I thought 3 a.m. in the night, I'm not going to do it. And the next morning when I woke up, I realized that the story was quite bizarre. And I realized that no reporter at night, 3 a.m. in the night, picked up that phone call because everybody was sleeping or everybody's phone was on silent mode. The story was about Jama Masjid and that there had been a power blackout at Jama Masjid. That
they hadn't paid their bills, which was a fake story. Yeah.
They hadn't paid their electricity bill. Since I didn't take that call and nobody else took that call, I think the political editor of the channel was forced at the midnight to really go and do that story. At midnight, he could not have had the option of calling anybody and cross-checking the report. He didn't maybe put his own thinking cap on and decide to wait till the morning to get the report confirmed. And it turned out that the report was fake.
Yeah, it was fake news.
The credibility of your political editor really went down the drain because he had no option. Even though he was an editor, he had no agency to say no. So that, in my opinion, what in these channels, some of the channels that are what I call commando comic channels, I don't think the reporters are very happy because they're not doing what they're doing. And you will also see these are the very channels which have very less retention rate. They don't, their employees don't stay back. The employees leave the organizations. And most importantly, they don't find jobs after working for these channels because they have done things, they have gone to the extent where it's very difficult for them to make a comeback.
Rahul, you wanted to come in? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised and I disagree completely. If a reporter doesn't take a call at 3 a.m., no matter what the issue is, without knowing it, he's not a reporter. Number one. It is not for a reporter to decide to take or not to take a call from the channel or the editor. It turned out to be a fake story. It could have been a very, very important big story. How do you know? And there are sometimes professional risks one has to take. A reporter's job, what I have learned and I have taught is you go with what you have. This is the basic rule in journalism we are taught. We can't wait for the entire picture to emerge, all the facts to arrive, and then people to give quotes.
Okay, let's get back to our...
Well, I agree with you. A reporter should be available at 3 a.m., but my point was not that. My point was that a news story that was picked up from postcard news was given to the political editor.
It doesn't matter.
It matters
but
because
our
it was a
topic
fake news
at
at
hand
the end of the day. But I want to come back to
we
the
will
point.
discuss this later.
The point that I was trying to make is...
What we need to, but we should get back to the topic. I mean, we can always debate about reporting versus, what's reporting and what's not. But I want to come to Dominique. You've reported on Rwanda, and there's been a lot of research now and lots of papers written now, coming back to a topic on, at hand, that there were channels, radio channels, TV channels that actively created a situation of disharmony that instigated, that laid the ground for the genocide. Not to be an alarmist, to draw parallels with India right now, but what, in your view, how did the media play a role there in that frenzy that followed in the 90s?
In Rwanda, everybody knows that there were radio from the government who wanted extermination, so they prepared the field for extermination. It is a very poor country, very rural country, so radio is very, very important. In each house you have a radio. And during months, they said that the Tutsi people, there were two major people into Rwanda, the Hutu and the Tutsi, and the Hutu were on government and prepared the Hutu to kill the Tutsi, and they prepared it on the radio with the language, and they were saying that Tutsi were vermin, cancrelats.
Vermin, okay, like
Okay.
worms,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
And very bad small things, exactly like European medias have done with Jewish people before extermination. So this is the part of the media when it is no more a media, because a media means that you are in the middle. You're not the black, you're not the white, you're not the man, you're not the wife, you're in the middle. And this is your place. And the only place you can have and you can stay is this one. So, of course, in Rwanda, it was extremely important. The role was extremely important.
Do you see that, not to that scale, but currently when you discuss immigration, for example, in France or in European countries, do you see similar kind of language being deployed by news media? Do you see...
It depends which media. And it depends which aim. We have very good medias, and somehow we have medias who are here from a kind of propaganda, but when there is propaganda media, you have other media with making fun with that.
Okay,
Always.
like satire
Always.
and stuff like that, yeah.
I'm sure that in India it's the same.
Yes.
You have media who are making fun with that.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there is always, and what is important is that there is always a counterpower to kill it.
A counterpower to kill it. Vani, none of us as media professionals would want a board to certify or would talk about censorship. But there are countries that have gone through great historical injustices and have formulated laws that say, okay, this is a line. This is hate speech and you cannot say beyond this. In India, we haven't had that, but do you think we have to wait for that to happen till we draw a line? And if we are to draw a line, who does it? And what are your views on sort of regulating from a regulatory point of view?
So I come with a disclaimer. I do not represent just the Censor Board of India. I'm also a person who has some thoughts on the subject that we are speaking today.
Yes, absolutely.
Having said that, I think when I'm certifying a film, I'm very against the word censorship. I've very openly spoken about what censoring can mean and how somebody's creative work can completely get decimated or damaged just because, you know, X, Y, Z people. After all, there is a human resource here, whether it's France or the United States. Every country has a certification board. But certifying of cinema, and as you said, we incorrectly call it the censor board. It's really not censoring, it's actually certification. I would apply the same rule here also, that what is the gaze and the intention? For example, objectification of women has been such a big, question that we've been debating and debating and debating. But when I see a Kabir Singh recently done so well, that kind of misogyny is acceptable to this country and it makes 250 crores. It's a shame. And I'm saying it's a shame, and yet people are accepting it, and not just accepting it, making it a runaway hit. It's the gaze and the intention of content around us which is very important to be understood. It's very important to understand. One issue is what Rahulji said, which I started with, TRP. Yes, there is a commerce involved. There is money involved. Channels won't run if they don't have the money. But is that the only thing which is required to put out broadcast or put out content or put out news? This is a question that we very seriously need to ask. And we also need to ask that if something is looking like, I mean, within the question that you have in your title, is it abetting in creating conflict? Now, this can be, Manisha, a very big broad stroke. But abetment of conflict can be very nuanced.
Exactly.
Like, you know, an item number in a film, you know, is not nuanced, but he says, it was just one item number. The film was about, you know, say political conspiracy, or it was, you know, about a societal, you know, conflict, which the film was about. So the larger picture should be, and that is what I think we should be looking at, what is the intention of that particular broadcast, if 1 or 2 or 10 or 100 or 500, which we are debating today. And today news is not just what you see on TV. There was a time when whatever was written on the front page of a newspaper was gospel truth. It isn't so anymore. There is critique around it. There is so much of argument around it. There's so much discussion which happens also on social media. One of the biggest carriers of news, as Khalid said, is social media. So are we also looking at how we will make the distinction between what is fake, what is real, what is not real, what is somewhere real and is being misconstrued as something and is being propped up to, you know, broadcast something which actually may not be true? I don't know, regulation is not a word which would be pertinent in this case.
Okay.
Because the media itself, I think, has self-regulatory rules.
Which hasn't worked much.
It has, so I think the discussion should be within the community. Like I always tell filmmakers, you will make garbage, people will watch garbage. Stop making garbage, people will not watch it.
Rahul, I want to come to you with something that Dominique flagged about when she was talking about Rwanda, about certain words being used to describe the other when, like say, vermin. Today, when you watch television news, you have labels like Tukre Tukre Gang. You have labels of anti-national, someone being an anti-national, someone being a Deshdrohi, Dimak. When you see this, do you think that this kind of discourse, do you see it heading towards something more dangerous that we'd see in society, or would you be skeptical like Vani is that, okay, I don't know if this really abets, this may be entertaining, this may be something people watch, but I don't know if it really goads people to take the next step?
It is destroying a whole lot of things that every democracy must cherish, which is the ability to listen, to give respect to the other viewpoint while disagreeing vehemently, civility, as I said, and the whole science and art and beautiful skill of dialogue. I hold the view, maybe the old school, that our job is not to label things or people or groups. Our job is to present things as they are happening, and let people form an educated opinion. It is not our job to thrust decisions, thrust labels, and thrust characterizations out of our own agendas. And then,
sure, but
are we creating a more dividing society, or are we bringing people together? It's a simple test. Are we a more divided society today, or a more united society? Everyone knows the answer. And we have some role to play there.
But do you see television news anchors who say these things, do you think their word holds the power to actually instigate acts of violence?
I wouldn't say that they instigate acts of violence, but they instigate the instinct of violence. It starts with verbal violence, it starts with intellectual violence, and in some people, it leads to actual violence, physical violence. So if you are creating an atmosphere where calling anyone anti-national or a traitor openly and saying on air, the anchor, you are rubbish. What are you doing? You are making this behavior and making this whole extremely violent language acceptable. Not just acceptable, desirable and fashionable and respectable. That is an extremely dangerous thing to do.
I think we've seen some of that with the Zomato controversy now, where on news channels we've had people give airtime to people who've justified this. You know, something completely idiotic.
Obviously, if I as an anchor am doing this, I'm going to get people who sort of support me.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Which is, yes.
You know, Manisha, as in the debate of the thesis also having an antithesis. For example, one question that I'm always asked, why are you talking about objectification of women? If you have the right to offend, I have the right to feel offended. Now, democratically, if you were to look at this argument, one would say, yes, if you are, abusing me, I have the democratic right to feel that I have gotten offended because of the abuse. But I think the line there is so thin as far as creating provocation, what provokes, is it a provocation which leads to a news report, is also something that we seldom talk about. There may be an incident which probably is impacting a certain section of society or is impacting a certain region of the country, and a news reporter decides, like Rahulji said, how do you know even before a news breaks how big or small, fake or real the news is? So who will actually be the deciding factor to understand how real is this, how unreal is this, is also something that we must very deeply look into. If regulation is not the way, as I said, what will be the way? Can the industry on its own get together and have a dialogue that now we will stand up against fake news, which means we will have to put in mechanisms which look at whether what we are reporting, the reportage of the day, is real or whether it's unreal, or it's like somewhere in the middle, but I take the gamble because this may get me the TRP.
I think industry is too divided to come together. But Khalid, as someone who's reported from Kashmir, you were with Vion there, and it is a conflict zone. And a lot of the primetime debates that we see today, and I think there was a gentleman also in the audience who remarked earlier, was everyone's starred as a stone pelter. And everyone's a terrorist, or everyone's like a lover of India, Bharat Mata Ki Jai type. How do you see media's role in the Kashmir conflict? Do you see any nuance there? And do you think that we've actively demonized maybe a large section of Kashmiri, and we've possibly also alienated voices of peace?
Well, I think Kashmir has become a totally us versus them black and white story, because you're either on one side or the other. And there is no middle ground. If you're on the middle ground, there'll be an attempt to put you on either of the sides. And it does have a lot of effect on the ground, and it does alienate a lot of people. And this is not what I'm saying. This is what the governor of J&K has said to one of the anchors in a show, in an interview, that you need to tone down your rhetoric on Kashmir. This is what is being said by the police and the army officers off the record. They do point out, they say that we don't want the debates to be like this. The media today is more hardline than the state. We are not as hardline as you guys want us to be, or you present us to be. The second
That's very interesting for the state to say that.
Yeah, the state. I've had very senior police officers telling me that, oh, what is happening on the TV news is actually making our job very difficult, and we don't know how to negotiate and how to really have a word with the people. Number one. Number two is that the voices of peace. I'm saying that even the mainstream, or let's say the people who have sided with India, who are considered as pro-India, there is no clarity on who's on the Indian side and who's on the Pakistani side now. I remember a very interesting story when Mufti Muhammad Saeed became the Chief Minister of India. In Kashmir, he's seen as the Indian. Okay, the Kashmiris have always seen him as the Indian. On the day he made some off-the-remark remark in his press conference, the day he took the oath, saying that we thank Pakistan or something of the order. And in the evening, he was labeled as a pro-Pakistan chief minister. And when you have a man who is being seen by the Kashmiris as the Indian, but in the evening, you see the primetime debates calling him a pro-Pakistan chief minister, you're lost. You see that there is no ground out there. It's like you have to come to terms with what I say, what a particular anchor thinks is the way to be a good Kashmiri or to be a patriot. If you subscribe to my checklist, then I agree with you, then you're good. If you don't, then I disagree with you. Recently, I was going through an interview with a Kashmiri politician, and the anchor, I remember just a few months, was quite, praiseworthy of the particular politician. Now that that particular politician has taken a stand on Article 35A, he was humiliated by the same anchor on the same show. So the idea here is that you have left very little room to identify a Kashmiri somewhere on the middle ground. And the same discourse really comes down on social media. For instance, I'll tell you quite frankly, when I tweet something, there will be a jihadi written somewhere or the other by somebody. And
you see that on TV news channels too.
Yeah, and on the
anchors
TV
do use
news
that
channels,
word very, very loosely.
And the kind of debates that are happening, I think they deliberately choose people who say the most obnoxious things. I think the representation from Kashmir, the people they choose, they say the most obnoxious things. When you know that a person is going to praise Hafiz Saeed on your TV channel, why do you bring him back? They bring them back to humiliate them, and that kind of humiliation is then, the same kind of humiliation goes to the social media, and then perhaps on the ground with the people who really think the same things, that what is said on the TV about Kashmiris gets reflected elsewhere. And when you talk about the voices of peace, there is only one narrative on Kashmir. It's that they're all terrorists on one end. On the other end, I think from our end also, there is a certain narrative which says that we are all Burhan Wani, we are all a part of the same deal. And there is no nuance. We don't want to look at the other kind of a Kashmiri who may be living a normal life, may be happy with what's happening, may want to live a life with peace and dignity, but doesn't want to fall in trouble, wants peace in his land. You don't get to hear those people on TV anymore.
Dominique, you wanted to come in? Yeah, please go.
I wanted to coming back to what I said about Rwanda. Because I said, as a media, we are in the middle, but sometimes it's wrong. Because we all belong first to human law, which is not national law.
To human love, which is not national love. Okay.
Law, not love.
Oh.
Law.
Law, okay.
I don't mind about love.
Okay.
But about law.
Love law.
Law, which is symbolic law. And in Rwanda, it was no more possible to stay in the middle. Because my country, France, belongs to that genocide and did very wrong things during genocide. And we knew it as journalists. It is our job to know it. Our job first is to know things.
Yes.
First, we have to know things. It's the more difficult in our job. Not to speak, but to know. It's very important because it is what will give you roots to your job. So when we went in Rwanda there was the killers, the killed, the UN army, and many people from many governments. And we were obliged, as journalists, we were obliged to see these people killed in front of UN army without anything done. And it is insupportable. It's impossible. And we knew that we were made this witness, very bad witness. Then came the French army. And the French army said, well, we are coming to save the poor Tutsi. And I heard that there were partly extreme right inside the military and French people coming in Rwanda. So I thought, this is strange. Why are there many extreme right people coming to Rwanda? And I thought, well, if there is a lot of extreme right coming to Rwanda, maybe that means that they are not coming here to save Tutsi, but they are coming to exfiltrate the genocidarian. But I had no proof. I just think about that. So I came to see the French army who was in Rwanda, and I was very tired and a very bad humor. And I came into it was not a room, it was une tente, comme on dit, une tente.
A tent.
A tent. Thanks, you. I came into the tent, and there was the militarian, and I was not allowed to do so, but it is our job to do things we are not allowed. Yeah, it's very important.
Yes.
Because I am very surprised that now, in the new generation, a country said, "Oh, my border is closed," and the journalists say, "Oh, so I will not go." Really? Really? No, it's not the job. Our job is to go where you have to go.
Yeah, and to see what the governments don't want us to see.
Yeah. So I want to see that guy of the army, and I say, "What are you doing here? Are you here to help Tutsi, or are you here to help Hutu?" And he told me, "What is the name of the color of the mission?" And the name of the mission was turquoise. And turquoise is the blue, green, blue, blue. So he gave me the answer. And the answer was, well, we are saying people that we are going to save Tutsi, but we are exfiltrating Hutu. Until now, the French government refuses to say the truth. But we are, our only purpose of that job is to go on and go on and go on, and you ask the question 20 times if you have to ask it 20 times. You don't belong to the same law that this national law.
Great. So I've just been informed that we have to do the Q&A session. We'll take some questions from the audience. That gentleman there.
Thanks. It was very informative. My question was, we know what the sides are and what they stand for. I was looking at what is the way out. Like, one of the panelists said that, Kabir Singh was a runaway success. And I don't see anything odd about it, I mean, no, not about the movie. I mean, we've got the Chief Justice of India, who's done something very similar, right? There was a Mansi Soni on one side, right? I mean, someone did what Kabir Singh did to Mansi Soni. I mean, my question is, what is the way out? What's the skillful mean?
Okay. Well, it's particular to television news? What is the way out?
No, I'm saying that, like Trump in America, you said, he talks about infestation, about immigrants. I mean, we know what everybody stands for. How do we bring them together? What's the way out? What's the center?
I think
What's
all
the
of you
middle
can
ground?
take that question. Yeah, please do. How do we
we'll never
solve
be
this?
able to put anything together because the kind of diversity, I'm talking about India first, every 50 kilometers, the language, the culture, even the food we eat changes. So this whole broad stroking of getting everybody together is not going to work, but I think we should be very clear in our lines of what's wrong and what is right, what is ethical and what is unethical. It also goes for news. When I spoke about Kabir Singh, I got attacked by my own community, but do I give a damn? I don't. Because misogyny is misogyny. And this kind of portrayal and representation and this kind of protagonist and the flavor of the month kind of tirade which happens in Bollywood, in the film industry, how many more Kabir Singhs will be floating around in the next 1 year? We don't know. So the capaciousness and the courage to say this is right and this is not right is probably that will bring us together and nothing else.
There's a question there.
Firstly, big thanks to the organizers because I think this is a fantastic forum. I wanted to admit that I'm a voracious consumer of news whenever I can, whether it's a newspaper, definitely the television, at least 3 to 4 channels.
Wow.
Social media, yes, social media is there for you to know what's happened, but the dissection of it, in whatever manner it happens, I run through at least 2-3 alternative channels.
Okay.
It's interesting to know what are the main issues they've picked from the different news that has, that's transpired during a particular day. And I think despite the cacophonous nature of the news, a lot of it is staged, yes. But I think on a positive side, I think it's extremely interesting because it has created a certain engagement of the public with the affairs, whether it's social, whether it's political, whether it's economic. I think there is an important role that is being performed of that of information. I don't think it's right to completely put aside the intelligence of an average Indian person. We're not dumb-driven cattle.
No, of course, sure.
We have our opinion. We're listening to a broad range of opinions. And I think it's helped people engage with social life, with political life. If it is cacophonous, it's also possibly a reflection of what's happening in the political sphere, in the social sphere. So I think there are both ways. It's a question of what you take, like the guest from France mentioned, that she, does alternative work while listening to it and takes in only what she or he, what she could. So I think from that perspective, there are some positives.
Okay. So you're basically saying that we shouldn't just be that negative. And of course we're not. I think all of us are having this discussion because we do care about television news. I don't think we're saying that it's not necessary or it's not, the question there.
Yeah, my question is about what Khalid Shah said just now. It is regarding the reporting on Kashmir. Now, there is no reporting as done today, what I see. The only thing is debates, that side or this side. One side will be first got punished, he became a terrorist, or one side will be the extreme republic sort of thing. Okay? There's no, I come to know from politician Ram Madhav by watching his video that there's a Baltistani village called Turtuk in Kashmir, which nobody I think in India knows. So where is that informative, where will that informative view come from?
Well, I think today the media is focused on 300 odd militants or terrorists, whatever is politically correct to say, in Kashmir. And they're not more than 300 or 350, and they don't bother about any other person living in Kashmir. We have Gujars, we have Bakarwals. You never come to know the voice of Jammu, for instance. There is a very strong grievance among the people of Jammu, which has got to do with governance and their share in power. We don't get to know that. For instance, about Ladakh, you don't get to know about what's happening in Ladakh. They have their own issues at hand, and at times, in my opinion, personally, an honest admission, they are somewhat slaves to the destiny of what Valley thinks. So even in the debate itself, you have narrowed it down to 2 or 3 kinds of agent provocators, either the separatists or the stone pelters or the 300 odd militants. The rest of the Kashmir doesn't really matter. Their voice doesn't matter. The rest of the state of Jammu and Kashmir nowhere comes in the picture. So Leh, Ladakh, Jammu, Baltistan, whatever, there are various, Kashmir is a very diverse place. Jammu and Kashmir is a very diverse place. And for that matter, Kashmiri Pandits. There is a representation, but there is also an other side of opinion from the Kashmiri Pandits as well. So what has really happened is that you've narrowed it down to on 1 or 2 or 3 issues, and every night you're feeding the same to the people, and there is no voice from the other side. There's no voice from the other ethnic and the religious groups.
Okay,
so that's also a problem.
We can take one more question. We're really out of time, but just one last question because he's been... Yes, of course, please.
What you said is true, but I just want to bring your attention to another animal that exists in this media jungle, which is the print, the newspapers and magazines. They do these things that we are missing in television, and television is a medium of the spectacle. Don't let us forget that. Spectacle, right? So the sort of nature of the medium itself decides a whole lot of things, including content and the way it's presented. Anything mundane, normal, day-to-day, run-of-the-mill is not a TV story. It cannot be, even though it may be terribly important. Significant undercurrents may be on in every society, every state. It is the print's job that brings out these nuances, the deeper stories, the phenomena taking place in various dimensions. So we must see the limits of each medium and not expect everything from every medium.
I think the challenge is for television to how to be watchable, be immensely watchable, but not go down the bizarre spectacle route. Because television news is still a really powerful medium, right? When you see a video, it strikes you in a way that maybe a print story wouldn't.
But you know, it's the same difference between reading a book and watching the adaptation of the book on cinema. It's actually the theater of the absurd. That's what it's become.
Okay, one last quick question and then we'll have to wrap up. Sorry.
I'd like each of you to look into your crystal ball and to see how do you see, just fast forward 5 years from today, what do you see as the state of the media going forward?
Okay. Dominique, do you want to see that future of media? Are you optimistic?
5 years from
5
today.
years from now. What
5
do you...
years from now.
Very funny. How could I answer? It belongs to us.
Okay.
Do we want some truth or not? It is the point. It's very interesting in France because the so-called elite, they recognize themselves on one very interesting point, is about the real, not the reality, but what we call the real. It means inside reality, there is something you cannot change. It is the core of reality. And our elite, and I think it's the same in many capitalistic elite, they don't want to know about the real. They push it out. And we, journalists, we have to put it in the center of the table and to say, this is the more important. We are human beings. We live that life. Don't try to tell us that we don't live that life. We live that life. And we have to be strong enough as journalists and loneliness enough to always and always and always say and say and say again, this is the real life. And this is the only aim for us, in my mind. So if people do accept that, no problem. We will live a long life.
Vani, do you want to come in and you guys quickly on
I
your
can never
future
lose
of-
hope, otherwise I won't be certifying bad films. I have to do that job, right? No, I think it's a cathartic moment and it's a dynamic space. As I said, the critique itself, it's no more gospel truth as to what you read in the papers and what you see on TV. You see the dramaturgy and you always question it, and that's why there's so much of discussion around it. And I think this space itself will speak. It is speaking. We are here speaking, and so are you. And we all are in the game. I mean, we are audience, and yet we are also the actors who are, performing whatever acts they are. So I think I won't be very hopeless about it. But yes, the critique itself should become that catharsis which is required to understand what will happen with the space, in the near future to come.
Well, I think the media is also affected by the politics of times. And with changing politics, so will the media change. I don't think it'll remain in a constant. And also with social media coming in, there is a interface between what's happening on media now and the kind of challenges that social media has put forward. So that will have a really role to play. And third, I think the business and the revenue models are changing. And with changing revenue and business models, my sense is that it won't remain here. It may not go worse. But yes, we may be able to see much more good journalism platforms coming up, because now when the audience and when the consumers of news are literate about the news, they will take the right decisions to choose a medium which provides them the best of news or opinion or whatever you may want to call it. So I think that's where the key is the media literacy of the audience. And with new platforms coming up which are apprising the audience of the muck that's in media, or the good and the bad and the ugly of the media literacy is really going up, and that will bring about a positive change.
Rahul, last words.
I wish I could be as sanguine. I think we are in for troubled times for quite a while. It's not going to be any time soon that we'll see things improve visibly. Media literacy is a good thing, but what we are what we need is not just media literacy, because when the literate, not just the literate, highly educated, well-placed, experienced, and affluent people refuse to use discretion, refuse to use what we call vivek, then what do? So literacy has to graduate to real education, to decide what kind of society we want. So audience also, at some point, the preponderance of audience has to decide that we have had enough, now we want something better. Until that happens, in a size, at a scale matters. Ratios matter. So these people are all very good people, but you're not going to decide the fate for the future of media or our democracy. The scale, until we have that desire at scale, things won't improve.
Okay, on that dark note, thank you so much for being here and being wonderful audience.